Crocktober may be over, but it is always slow cooker season here in my kitchen. And I have 3 new slow cooker recipes to share with you guys today, so stay tuned. Welcome back to my kitchen, and if you are new to my channel, I'm so glad that you found me. I'm Mindy, and in this kitchen and on this channel, I share how I am feeding my family and how I am making delicious meals that are cost-effective, that save time, and hopefully both. So if you like that kind of content, be sure that you are subscribed and that you have your notifications set, because I don't post on the same days at the same times all the time, and I'm usually putting out about 2 videos a week. My husband Daniel and I have 3 children who are 12, almost 9, and 8 years old, and they keep us pretty busy in the evenings. We're very active. We have kid athletes, and we're out of the house a lot of times in the evenings. So my crock pot is what keeps me from going through the drive-thru more often than not. And we tried 3 new to us recipes this past week that I wanted to share with you guys. So let's dive in. It has been a super busy Sunday. If you are new to my channel, my husband is the executive pastor at our church, and I am heavily involved in the music ministry. And so that makes our Sundays very blessed, but very busy. And today has been no exception. In addition to our usual Sunday schedule, I had some additional rehearsals. We're coming into the Christmas season, so we're starting to practice a little bit extra for all of the extra services and Christmas Eve services that we will be putting on. Plus, my son had a meeting with his baseball team, and I just got back from that. Fortunately, I had time to run in after church and throw something into the crock pot. We are going to have tonight a crock pot beef and noodles. In the crock pot already is 1 pound of stew meat. And stew meat is often just like a chuck roast or a shoulder roast that has been prepped for stew. It's already chopped up into little pieces. And then to that, I took the easy road today and I seasoned this with a packet of onion soup mix that I already had in the pantry, a couple of teaspoons of beef broth base or beef bouillon, a couple of teaspoons of Worcestershire, and then I added about 5 cups or so of water to my crock pot, and that has been cooking on high now for a few hours. So now I'll show you what I'm adding to this to complete the meal. My beef is done cooking. Now I'm gonna finish this off by adding some of these Reams egg noodles. I would not do this with the dry egg noodles, you know, that like come in the package from the pasta aisle. I definitely think the fresh ones would be better. I mean, these came out of the freezer section. Obviously homemade ones would be even better, but I just don't have the time tonight. But I don't need this whole bag. I only need about 16 ounces, which is 2/3 of this bag. So I won't use this whole bag. I'll just use about 2/3 of it. I'll put those in there along with about probably 1/2 to 3/4 of a cup of half and half. I'll put the lid back on and let those noodles cook there with the meat and the broth and the half and half. My mother grew up on a farm in northern Kansas, and I have heard stories about what a fabulous cook my Nana was, my mother's mom. I was not fortunate enough to know her because she passed away when I was really young, but this is actually inspired by a meal that she used to make, a beef and noodles. Of course, she made her chuck roast from scratch and her noodles from scratch, but she always served this over mashed potatoes, and I have heard my family talk about this meal time and time again. Okay, here it is, all plated up. I have already tried this and it is fantastic. It turned out great and it was so easy. Yummy. I'd like to thank ButcherBox for sponsoring today's video. ButcherBox believes in better, and they deliver 100% grass-fed, grass-finished beef, free-range organic chicken, pork raised humanely, and wild-caught seafood directly to your doorstep. ButcherBox has 5 different box options to choose from. 4 of them are curated for you, and their most popular is the custom box, which is the one that I always get, where you actually get to pick the cuts of meat that come to you each time. You can also choose how often you want to receive a box, and you can adjust the frequency of your deliveries or your subscription at any time when you go to their website. It's super easy to navigate. Plus, you can have a look around and see what add-ons and specials they're running at any given time. Life gets pretty busy around this household, and Sometimes the convenience of having good quality meat delivered to my door is just what I need to keep me cooking my meals at home, which is better for the pocketbook and better for my health overall, in my opinion. This week, ButcherBox is having a fantastic Black Friday special. New members who sign up with ButcherBox this week from November 22nd to November 28th will receive, in addition to their regular box items, 2 free New York strip steaks in every box for an entire year. So if it's your first time to try out ButcherBox, you can visit the link in the description box below to sign up for your box, and then steak night will be on ButcherBox for an entire year. You can actually see my husband prepping our steaks right here, and he is kind of particular about it. He says a good steak only needs salt, and he always wraps it in saran wrap because salt will draw the juices out of the meat, but if you wrap it in saran wrap while it marinates in the salt, all of those flavors will stay in the steak and will make just a really juicy, flavorful steak whenever you grill it. Thank you again to ButcherBox for sponsoring today's video, and go give them a visit. The link is in the description box below. I'm getting ready to throw these ingredients into the crock pot. This is a recipe for bacon ranch white chicken chili. I will leave the original recipe linked in the description box below. I have had to make just a few adjustments because I couldn't find all of the ingredients, or I didn't have all of them on hand, but this is what I'm using to make this. I have 2 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken thighs. These came in my butcher box. There are actually 3 packages that are about 1 pound, but I only need 2 for this. I'm going to use some bacon. The original recipe calls for it, but I'm taking the easy road and I'm going to use just the fully cooked bacon. I'm just going to dice this up and toss it into the crock pot with everything else. Some Great Northern beans, 1 pound of dry Great Northern beans, and I will rinse these before I put them into the crock pot. The original recipe calls for Hearst's ham beans, but I could not find that particular brand in my grocery store, so I'm going to use these. 2 cans of diced green chilies. I wish that I had a 3rd can, but I only have 2, so it'll be fine. It calls for 6 cups of chicken broth, which I will make from water and broth base. 6 tablespoons of ranch seasoning, which is the equivalent of 2 packets, but I'm gonna use my homemade ranch seasoning. If you wanna know how I make this, I've done several videos about this. I will leave one linked in the description box below. I actually just talked about this in a recent favorites video. 1 onion and about 3 or 4 cloves of garlic, which I will dice and mince, and then salt and pepper to taste. I'm going to put all of that into the crock pot. I'm going to cook mine on high for about 4 hours because I'm getting a little bit of a late start on this, and then I'll take the chicken out and shred it up and put it back in, along with 1 cup of heavy whipping cream. I layered all of the ingredients into the crock pot according to the directions in the original recipe. I definitely think I could have used a little less chicken, but I went ahead and used the full 2 pounds that I showed you. And I let this cook on high for about 4 hours. And at that point, the chicken thighs were done and they were ready to take out and shred. And then I put them back into the crock pot. And before I added the half and half, I went ahead and did just a little bit of a cornstarch slurry, about 2 tablespoons of cornstarch with a little bit of water because I wanted to thicken this up just a tad. And then I poured in the 1 cup of half and half, and I let it cook on low for about 30 more minutes, and it was ready to serve. This makes a huge pot of chicken chili. It definitely stretched a long way. We actually had some house guests over to watch football this night, so this fed a lot of people, and it was really delicious. Tonight, I am going to make carne asada, and I'm going to utilize my crock pot to make the meat. And we are going to use this beautiful grass-fed boneless beef flank steak that came in my butcher box. I have been using ButcherBox for a while, since long before they became a sponsor of See Mindy Mom, and one of the things that I've always really liked are the specials and the add-ons. I feel like they have some great prices on some special items that change from week to week, from month to month, whenever I am making an order. And so going in and checking those out whenever I'm going to be getting a box anyway, and looking to see if there are any new and exciting things or fantastic prices on items is always a good idea, I think. And I noticed that they had flank steak as a special add-on item this time around. And so I've wanted to try this recipe for a while, and I thought this would be a good opportunity. Another thing that I really like about ButcherBox is that the amount, the poundage that you're getting for each cut of meat that is in your box, that's the minimum. And I have never ever been shorted by Butcher Box. They have always sent me at least what they advertise. And a lot of times what I get is actually a larger cut than is advertised. For instance, this is 1.34 pounds. So it's 1 1/3 pounds of flank steak. Whenever I ordered it, it was a pound. So to get that extra third of a pound is really nice. So let me get out the other ingredients for this and I'll show you how we're putting this together and some of the other things that I am putting together because it's Tuesday. So we're gonna make it a Taco Tuesday night and have a really delicious family dinner. I have my flank steak here, which I will put into my crock pot, and then I will whisk together these ingredients to pour over the top. And that is a 1/4 cup of olive oil, a 1/4 cup of orange juice, 1 teaspoon each of chili powder and cumin, 2 teaspoons of minced garlic, the juice from a fresh lime, and then a tablespoon of honey. So I will just mix all of that together and then pour it over the top of my flank steak in the crock pot, and it will be ready to get started. The recipe says to let this cook on low for 7 to 9 hours. And by the way, I will leave that recipe linked in the description box below. And that is the key to really tender, flavorful meat, is to cook it low and slow, right? But it's actually close to lunchtime, and so I don't really have 7 to 9 hours. But one of the tricks I use whenever I want to make sure that something is done by the time it's ready, by the time it's time for dinner, but I don't have 7 to 9 hours, is I will actually start it on high and then I will bump it down to low in a couple of hours. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and start my crock pot on high. I'm gonna set my oven timer for 2 hours. And when that goes off, I will bump it down to low. And so then I will still get that slow cooked flavor and tenderness of the meat, but it will be cooked all the way through and in time for dinner, so we don't have to delay dinner. One of the things I'm getting asked about these days, especially as grocery prices are rising a little bit, is how we can include meat in our meals, how we are affording meat, how we can continue to use meat, even if we're trying to stay on a budget. And I will say that I have started to, even before we saw prices rise just a little bit, I have started to think of meat as more of like a flavoring or a garnish. It's something that I'll probably continue using in our cooking, even though I do occasionally make a meatless meal, but it's not the main attraction anymore. I'm thinking about ways that meat enhances the flavor of a dish and using it that way. That way I can continue to purchase good quality cuts of meat. I can continue to purchase the kinds of meat that we like and continue to use beef, which is usually a little bit higher than chicken. And we can continue to have delicious meals. So we're gonna get the flavor of the carne asada and we're gonna have a fabulous Taco Tuesday, but by putting together a few extra little side dishes and going the extra mile, creating some other things to go along with it, I can actually stretch that 1.3 pounds of flank steak that I'm using so that everybody gets fed, everybody gets a taste of it, so that it's enhancing this dish and this meal that we're having, but we don't have to have a lot of it. You know, we don't have to have a huge serving of it on everybody's plate. We're going to enjoy the little bit that we have along with all of the other delicious things that are going to complement it. Over the summer, I was making a lot of fresh pico because it's super, super easy and so much cheaper than the store-bought. It's just some really simple ingredients: tomatoes, onions, a little bit of jalapeno, some lime juice, and salt, and that's basically it. The key for me is to make it far enough ahead of time, at least a few hours before I'm wanting to serve it, so that it can go in the refrigerator and all of those ingredients can kind of marinate together. It makes for just a really delicious fresh pico. To go along with this, I am also throwing together some sort of Spanish style inspired rice. Basically, I am just going to brown my rice in a little olive oil with some chopped onions and garlic before I add the water to cook it in. And I'm also going to add a little can of tomato sauce and a little bit of this everything but the elote seasoning. If it were just me and my husband eating this, I would probably use like a can of tomatoes instead of tomato sauce, but I'm going to keep it pretty simple since the children are going to be eating it. They don't like a lot of extra stuff in their rice. And I'm also gonna peruse around my veggie crisper and see what veggies I have maybe to saute or roast to go alongside this. And then we're gonna be ready to have some tacos. Just a handful of extra ingredients and then taking a few extra minutes and preparing this rice makes all the difference in the flavor. Whenever I am cooking white rice, I will often bring it to a simmer and I will let it cook for about 10 minutes and then I will turn the stove completely off, but I will leave the lid to the pan on, and it always makes really yummy, fluffy rice that does not stick to the bottom of the pan. This is a departure from typical carne asada because usually it is grilled and not made in the slow cooker, but this made it really easy for me and the flavor was absolutely delicious. This was a really great meal that everybody enjoyed, and I will definitely be making this again. All right, you guys, that's what I have for you. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you again to ButcherBox for sponsoring this video. Be sure to go check them out. They are linked in the description box below, and I will be sure to check in again with you guys with another video very soon.